Hey YouTube, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a knife story for you. Now, this is a story that perhaps you've heard before, but I don't think you've heard the whole thing. So let me tell it to you now. This is a story of Goldilocks and the three knives. And the story begins with three bears, a mama bear, a papa bear, and a baby bear. Now, these bears live in a beautiful house out in the forest. And these bears do a lot of hunting and hiking. They're avid outdoorsmen, and so it becomes pretty important for them to have a good knife. And so they decide, hey, let's head over to White Mountain Knives and we'll see what they've got in stock and see if we can't find the right knife for each of us. So they look around White Mountain Knives and they finally decide Spyderco is the way to go. They look through all the Spyderco knives and they say, I think we've got just the right knife. So Papa Bear buys a knife, Mama Bear buys a knife, and Baby Bear buys a knife, and they're all quite happy with their purchases. So the next day, they're out for a walk, and they come across their good friend Goldilocks. Now, Goldilocks has gone out into the woods for a picnic. By the way, her and the bears are friends at this point. She decided they were actually pretty cool after they didn't charge her with breaking and entering, and they also didn't eat her. So from that point on, they had a pretty positive relationship. Now, Goldilocks is out in the woods and she's going to have a picnic and she's got some cheese and salami along with her. But here's the problem. She forgot to bring a knife. And this is a thing we never ever want to do. But suffice to say, she was lucky and fortunate that the bears happened to come along. So the bears come along and they say, Snow White, what are you up to? And she's like, well, I was going to have a picnic. It's a beautiful day out here. Problem is I brought cheese and salami for my picnic and I can't cut it. I forgot a knife. Not great, but Papa Bear says, listen, I've got a knife for you. Why don't you borrow my knife? And so Goldilocks gets the knife and she tries it out. Spyderco Endura, nice knife. But she's like, look, this knife is way, way too big. So, all right, Mama Bear says, look, I've got the solution. I carry a smaller knife. Why don't you try my knife? My knife, Spyderco Endura, gives it to Goldilocks. Goldilocks says, this is not a bad knife, but it's too small. It's just not going to work. I can't reach all the way across my block of cheese or my whole salami. So what am I going to do? And finally, Baby Bear, who actually has a bit of a crush on Snow White, says to her, look, I've got the perfect knife for you. Here you go. Use my knife. And so Goldilocks picks up Baby Bear's knife, takes it over and tries to cut her cheese and salami up. And it turns out it is just right. So Goldilocks says, listen, Baby Bear, this is a perfect knife. I got to get one for myself. What should I do? And if Goldilocks, because she's smart, she goes to White Mountain Knives. Now, the bears didn't, but she has enough sense to use my discount code, Sharp Stuff, saves herself 10% on her new Spyderco Indela, and everyone lives happily ever after. Now, the moral of the story, in fact, there are two morals to this story. The first one is, always carry a knife. Goldilocks would not have been stuck with no way of cutting her cheese and salami if she just did what wise people do and carried a knife in the first place. But the second moral is, look, it's important to take your time and find the knife that really works for you. And I guess there's one other moral to this story, and that is Spyderco really likes to compete with itself. But that is the story of Snow White and the three knives and how she ultimately found the perfect knife for her, the Goldilocks knife. And now the question becomes, is the Spyderco Indela the perfect knife for you or me? Let's go ahead and take a closer look. All right, guys, so here we have the Spyderco Indela. It is from the Endura Delica line, and in fact, the name is just a combination of Endura and Delica. Lots of creativity going on there. The question is, is this really the most perfect size knife? And did they really need to make something that lands right between the Endura and Delica? I don't find them to be all that different after all. The Delica is like just under 3 inches. The Endura is like 3.5, 3.75 inches, something like that. And this guy lands right in between the two with a blade length of 3 3/8. It's actually just 3 3/8 heavy, like not quite a 16th more. The blade length overall here is going to be 8 1/16, so just a hair over 8 inches. 4 11/16 on the handle. Okay, so that's this measurement when closed. 4¼ inch grip area. So I've got to give a lot of credit for a smaller knife. I wouldn't call this a small knife, but a smaller knife. This has a ton of grip area. And so if you're a guy with bigger hands, but you want something slim and easy to carry, you don't, you're not as you don't find the Delica or the Endura, I'm sorry, as appealing, this might be a really, really good option for you, okay, because it does give you lots of real estate for your hands there. Weighs in at only 3.1 ounces, which is pretty nice. Now it only has about 3 inches of cutting edge. So I'm going to bring in a couple of size comparisons here. One is because, you're very, very familiar with it, and because the size on this is really the standout feature. I feel like this is important even in a first impressions. So there's the Para 2. So you can see they're actually really, really close in size. The Para 2 is going to be like less than 1/4 inch longer. It's going to have a little more cutting edge, but not a whole lot more. It is quite a bit more substantial in hand, and I would call it just a little bit more comfortable. It's not, vastly more comfortable so that, I'm trying to argue this is uncomfortable or anything like that, but it's just a little more hand filling. The other knife I want to throw in here more as a preview is the Bird Harrier 2. Now you can see the Bird knife is a bit smaller. It's more around that 7.5 inch mark, bigger than a Delica, bigger than a Delica, the equivalent to which would be the Meadowlark, I suppose. Smaller than an Endura, again, or smaller than a Cara 2. So we'll do a full review and discussion on these two knives. I just wanted to bring that in as more of a preview for that upcoming video than an actual real comparison. So let's get back to the knife in question. If you're familiar at all with the Endura or Delica, you know most everything about this knife. We've got flat ground VG10 steel up here at the front. We've got FRN handle scales with the bidirectional texturing with stainless steel inserts. You can see they have milled out those stainless steel inserts to take away some of that weight. 4-way positionable pocket clip. Again, all things we're used to seeing on the Endura and Delica, and the mid back lock with the Boyd dent. So again, all of those terms are things you've heard before. If you've watched my Endura video, if you've watched any Delica video or anything like that, you're pretty well comfortable with how this whole thing works and how it's constructed. The question really becomes, and here's my first impression or my overall impression. I like this knife fine. I've used it. I've carried it. I enjoy it quite a bit. I guess the question is, which one is right for you? With that number of options, you can check out an Endura, you can check out a Delica, and you can have that ability to kind of pick for yourself which one is most suited to your carry needs. Now, one challenge, I suppose, of all of this is in the days of internet ordering, you would have to, I don't know, maybe take a guess or base it on other knives that you have, or, order one, try it, sell it, pick them up on the secondary market to try, and then pass on, or find a brick and mortar store where you can handle them. Now, thankfully, at least the Endura and the Delica are fairly commonly seen, so you can find one of those and get your hands on it pretty easily. All right, so what are my thoughts on the Spyderco Indela? I think it's a good knife. I've enjoyed carrying it. It carries really, really light. I like to have a little more cutting edge on my knives than this one has, but this is really good. I don't really have any major complaints about it. I enjoy it. I think it's pretty good, and I'm looking forward to getting to put some use on it so that I can share a full review with you guys in the not too distant future. So there you go, guys. Let me know in the comments down below what you think of this knife. Do they need this extra size, or were they already good with the Delica and Endura? Also, check the description box and you will find a link to White Mountain Knives where you can pick one of these up. And if you use my discount code like Goldilocks, you can save yourself 10%. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We will talk to you soon.